watching very closely. Obviously, Canadians are watching very closely. Obviously, everyone in China should be allowed to express themselves, should be allowed to share their perspectives and indeed protest. We're going to continue to ensure that China knows we'll stand up for human rights. We'll stand with people who are expressing themselves. We also need to make sure that China and places around the world are respecting journalists and their ability to do their job. We'll continue to make that very clear.
Okay, I'm sorry, everybody. First of all, I'm sorry I was late because I thought I had the right video up, but what I actually had was my supercut. Can you imagine, by the way, 30 seconds. He had 30 seconds of a soundbite clipped, 5 seconds of it. That is roughly 18% was him. That is to say, 18% of whatever Justin Trudeau says on a good day is audible diarrhea. The rest is actually just verbal diarrhea. That soundbite is not an old soundbite from before the protest in Ottawa, before Trudeau came in with a militarized police and literally stomped elderly Indigenous ladies. Literally, that's not from before. That was, as far as I know, one of the first statements, if not the first statement that Trudeau made about the protests in China after he himself having violently suppressed protests in Ottawa. Not just violently suppressed protests in Ottawa during his testimony, where he hemmed and hawed a lot less, which shows you that he was very well prepared for his testimony. In his testimony, he said, I find the idea of protesting, or he didn't say it quite like that. He said, protesting to affect policy change is something that I find worrisome. Protesting to affect policy change in Canada, worrisome. Violent suppression, stomping people with horses, pepper spray, batons, stun guns, or not stun guns, concussive grenades for Canadians. He stands up for Chinese protest. Stands up for protest in India, too. Stands up pretty much for protest everywhere that's not Canada and against everyone who's not him. Some might call that a dictator. All right, people, we've got an amazing one. It's early in the morning. I haven't eaten breakfast yet, but I've had my cup of coffee, so I'm not groggy. I'm not taking my kid to school today. My wife is doing that. So this is going to be amazing. I might stop with the Whitmer joke, but I'll do it once. Whitney Webb is coming on. If you don't know who Whitney Webb is, I think more of you know who Whitney Webb is because it was crowd, not influence, but insistence that this happened in the first place. So I think a lot of you know who Whitney Webb is, but if you don't, you're going to know her after this. Amazing. She's like a younger female Barnes. She's like a younger, less cynical, calmer. I think she's definitely more thoroughly researched than me. I am learning from Whitney Webb in real time, but we have a unique interest in the same subject matter, which seems to be the collapse of Western society and the corruption of all things administrative and government. Amazing. Standard disclaimers. We're going to go over to Rumble exclusively in a bit, not so that we can talk about things that we can't talk about here, because I'm going to put the entire interview up on YouTube tomorrow. We're going to go there because we're actually going to go support a platform that supports free speech, and I'm working with them now so that we can actually make that happen in real time and get people there so that there'll be a competition to YouTube. So we're going to go over there in a bit. Standard disclaimers. Thank you for the super chat. Fuentes is a... Okay, I'm not going to read all this. I don't want to be accused of making statements that I cannot substantiate, but I can go to the opinion part. He hurt Trump more than Dems could, got Ye to continue his self-destruction and set up the stage for the deplatforming of Tim Pool. The DNC and FBI are happy with Fuentes. I've heard theories about Milo Yiannopoulos, but look, theories, we'll talk about that later. Today, super chats. 30% goes to YouTube. If you don't like that, go over to Rumble. The link to Rumble is in the pinned comment in the chat. We are live on Rumble. I had accidentally indicated 9:30, but it looks like people knew that it started now. What else? No medical advice, but we might talk about some stuff. No legal advice and no election fortification advice. I think we're probably going to stay away from the election stuff today. For now, we're going to go to Epstein. euthanasia in Canada, which a concept called transhuman. We're gonna get into a lot of it, but first we're gonna get into who is Whitney Webb. Whitney, I'm bringing you in. 3, 2, 1. All righty.
Hi, hello.
How is it going? I'll let let the chat tell me if the audio is balanced. It sounds good to me. Whitney, good morning.
Good morning.
It is nice to meet you. We met, for full disclosure, everyone, 2 minutes before the chat, before the stream for the first time. I got a few questions, but I like to keep it all fresh. Whitney, so for those who may not know who you are, 30,000, I say the 30,000 foot overview, elevator pitch, and then I get into a little bit of childhood just so we can get to understand the person. And then we're going to get into, on the one hand, your 2-volume book.
Yeah.
Massive. I'm sharing the link around now, the Amazon affiliate link, because it's available on Amazon. I need an audio book, but we'll get there.
It's coming, the audiobook.
Are you gonna narrate?
No, I don't have time, but someone else is doing it. It should be out in January.
Fantastic. Because I cannot read. I cannot read with my eyes. I can only read with my ears. Whitney, okay. For those who don't know you, who are you?
So I'm just I'm a writer and researcher. My website is unlimitedhangout.com. Before that, I was senior investigative reporter at Mint Press News, and before that was a staff writer there. And I've been writing professionally since 2016. I'm currently 33 years old. Apparently, people claim that's proof I'm a Freemason, but I guess everyone born in 1989 is currently a Freemason for a year. So lucky us.
In Quebec, we have it. We call it l'âge de Jésus, like the age of Jesus, because that's that might not have a good connotation. So they call it l'âge de Jésus.
Okay.
I was 33 once as well. It's a beautiful year.
Unfortunately, you have to be 33 to get to 34 and everything after. So,
so investigative journalist, writing as of 2016. If I may ask, born and raised, what part of the world?
So I grew up in Florida, Sarasota. Not for me, Florida. So I ended up leaving. I went to college at Davidson, which is in North Carolina. And then not long after that, I moved. I took a job in South America and have pretty much been in South America since then.
And when you say Florida,
I'm still here.
When you say Florida's not for you, do you mean like the flatness, the heat, the humidity, or?
Yeah, so I'm like really pale and I don't tan. I'm also allergic to mosquitoes, and I don't like being covered in sweat if I'm outside for less than 30 seconds. So it just didn't work out.
Do you have Irish blood?
No, but my family is mostly is like Scot-Irish or British in general. Yeah, it's all pretty much from over there.
The only reason I ask is because the only person I knew in my life who had an allergy to mosquito bites, I went to camp with. He was an Irish kid. He would get bitten by mosquitoes. It would be golf ball welts.
Yeah, that's what happened to me all as a kid. It's hard because then you're like covered in chemicals to like not get bug spray, DEET and stuff like every time you want to go outside, and it's not as fun. So like where I live now, I don't have any of those problems. So it's just, Florida was not the climate for me. I'll just leave it there.
And I'm from Canada. I'm in Florida now. I love everything about it, not except for the climate. I just, there's no mountains, there's no rivers. You can't just jump into the fresh water. The mosquitoes don't bother me because they're worse in Quebec. I don't know what people complain about here, but maybe I haven't had the bad season yet. Parents, what did they do for a living?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad's a lawyer.
All right.
Yeah.
That might explain a few things. All right. My dad's a lawyer as well. So that might explain a few things. So you're 33. What did you study in university to get into what you're doing now?
So I double majored. One major was in biology, but really more focused on like agroecology. I was really interested in self-sufficiency and like growing my own food type of stuff from pretty young, I guess. But it's been a long time since I've worked in that world. So when I left university, I ended up helping manage a farm in South America. That's how I first sort of came down here. And then my other major was in religion, but in the academic study of religion. So not like theology, it's more like interdisciplinary. So a mix of history and anthropology and different stuff. And so over the course of my life, like before I was writing, both have been helpful at different times. So I did some stuff with like farm management, and some of the hard science background was useful when reporting about stuff in the COVID era. And even before then, I used to work part-time as a translator for scientific papers written by Chilean academics and universities here into English so they can be published in international journals and stuff. So that's been helpful. And then the religion stuff was actually quite useful when it came to reporting on stuff that I used to do a lot more of back when I was at Mint Press, like geopolitics stuff, because in studying like different religions around the world, you have to learn a lot of history and a lot of, just different things about different cultures. And that was definitely an asset early on in writing. So, and I also had to do like loads of writing. Davidson's like a liberal arts school, so it's very writing intensive. So I had to learn how to write long essays pretty quickly, I guess, especially with 2 majors. And so I just, that was probably the most useful thing I got out of university, was being able to, produce something written pretty quickly.
Well, the ability to write, read, and understand seems to be something that's less and less common from people coming out of university. And you came out of university like recently, within the last decade.
Yeah, about 10 years ago or so. Yeah, 22. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not familiar with Mint Press, but what type of publication is Mint Press?
So Mint Press is like an online publication. They focus on a lot of different stuff, mostly approaching things from like an anti-imperialist point of view. So, they do a lot of stuff on geopolitics, very critical of U.S. and generally Western foreign policy. They cover a lot of stuff. At least when I was there, I covered a lot of stuff about intelligence agencies in Silicon Valley, and there is a lot of focus on the Israel-Palestine conflict at Mint Press as well. So when I was there, I did a lot of coverage on that. And I left in 2020, set up my own Site Unlimited Hangout. And I also teamed up with Ryan Christian of The Last American Vagabond. And we've done collaborative stuff on and off over the years together. And hopefully now that the book is done, I can, be a more regular contributor to his project as well. So
fantastic. And I'm being fact-checked by the chat. Yes, people, officially the Everglades are a very slow-moving river, but you all know what I'm talking about. Cold, fast-moving rivers from mountain water with brook trout and...
Yeah. Well, the rivers in Florida are actually kind of great. Like sometimes there'll be manatees in them and stuff. I mean, that's awesome. But then other rivers will have alligators, and that's less awesome. So, it all depends.
I'm gonna move over to Rumble right now, everybody. Here, the link is in the chat. Let's go to Rumble because we're gonna get into the book now. One Nation Under Blackmail, how you got into the book, how you go about writing a Bible of corruption, so to speak. So ending on YouTube, going to Rumble. This changes nothing from our perspective, Whitney. I'm just going to remove YouTube, move over to Rumble, people. See you there in 3, 2,